Des Hudson first. What is actually wrong with this bill? I mean, essentially, we do have an expensive legal aid system in this country.
Well, what's wrong with the bill, I think, is twofold. First of all, it won't work. I don't think it will actually save the money that Ken needs to save. And secondly, it's going to deny access to justice for great swathes of our population. The Ministry of Justice, in its own impact assessment, said that the risks of the proposed bill were an increase in criminality and a reduction in social cohesion.
Well, that increase in criminality... Come on, I think an increased criminality.
Well, I think there was an example given by the Lord Chief Justice about 12 months ago, made the point that if one can't get access to the courts to remedy problems and ills, is the risk that you throw a stone through somebody's window, I think was the example he used. Now, I'm quoting, remember, Ken's own impact to justice assessment.
Right, okay, but we should stress that this is only on civil cases, so it's not about the criminal law at all.
No, the point I think I'm making is that if there isn't a mechanism by which you can get redress of your rights, if the poorest and weakest voices in the country can't deal with problems about housing or welfare law, then what will they do, and what does it do to the nature of our country and our sense of fairness?
All right, well, Ken Clarke, I mean, we've got a couple of substantive points there. The first and biggest concern is that this will deny justice to the poorest people in society, that the courts will only be available to the rich in civil cases.
No, it doesn't close anybody's access to justice at all. For those who don't get legal aid, unfortunately, the courts are already too expensive, so they're normally only accessible to the very rich or the very poor. But access to justice will still be there. What this bill is all about is the amount of money we pay to lawyers from the amount of litigation and the sorts of litigation we pay it for. Nowhere else in the world do they think it's sensible for the taxpayer to pay anything like as much as we do for all the litigation that goes on in this country. We're more than twice as expensive per head of population as the next country, which is New Zealand, and far, far more expensive, 6-7 times as much as most other countries.
Now, there is sorry, you mentioned. Sorry to interrupt.
We've got to decide what the taxpayers should pay for.
Sorry, you mentioned that figure, which you often quote. I think it's fair to say that other countries have different systems, and overall, the cost of justice in other countries is not quite as different as the figure you've just quoted, is it?
That's true of the European civil system.
Yeah,
so I'm comparing with, I'm comparing with common law systems. The next after us is New Zealand, which is less than half as expensive to their taxpayers per head as ours.
But they don't have the same...
Most of the others, it's £5 or £6 per head, we're £38 per head. But the point is, we're still going to be the most expensive in the world after our reforms.
But a lot of that, sorry, I do want to just...
money on those people where it really is essential. They
sorry
have
to
legal
interrupt.
assistance with their claims.
Sorry to interrupt. I do want to just get the statistical background right. Am I right in thinking that the difference between us and New Zealand is on the criminal side rather than on the civil side?
No, this is all splitting hairs. No, it's not. It's not totally explained by that. The fact is, over the years, the lobbying, great respect to Des, of the Law Society and others, has meant that the taxpayer is paying for a staggering amount of litigation and a lot of legal representation in cases like difficult family law cases over children and so on, where actually expensive adversarial litigation isn't the best way of resolving the dispute.
Okay.
I think mediation
I'll just let Des Hudson answer that.
And therein lies the point. I think that about 4 out of 100 solicitors today do legal aid. They do that because the amounts of money that are paid under the legal aid system are far, far less than they make doing other things. There was a study 2 years ago. A solicitor doing legal aid makes around about £25,000 a year. And that point about the adversarial system, if we're really concerned about the issue of justice, the way to deal with this is not to take legal aid from women, children, people who've been at the lowest of the low, but it's to look at the overall structure of our system. Let me make one other point.
Well, it would be to look at
we're not taking legal aid from women and children, Des, with great respect. We're taking
He's framed it differently to the way you would frame it.
Legal aid away from lawyers. The women and children would do better in the mediation system.
Well, the point is lawyers don't...
And your plea for higher rates, 25,000, you could do a lot better than
solicitors
that
do not
in
choose
the right parts
Ken
of
and
the
I
legal
both
profession.
Ken and I both know that no solicitor chooses to do legal aid to get rich. People who are doing legal aid work are doing it out of a sense of vocation. And I repeat the point that people who will lose under these changes are not
Point made. I want to just ask this. Ken Clarke, isn't there a way to bring the cost of justice down? Forget the legal aid bill. To lower the price of going through courts. It just seems like it takes too long and costs too much.
I entirely agree. I mean, that's why, firstly, we've got to tackle this ludicrous amount of money the taxpayer pours into some of the litigants. But let's move on. There's also a no-win, no-fee system, which is very good. That is the way in which claims for personal injuries should be pursued. You only pay a fee if you actually win to your solicitor. That's been made grotesquely expensive by changes made about 7 or 8 years ago. We're repealing. But the system itself needs modernising. It's run for the convenience of judges.
Right.
It's run for the convenience of
and
lawyers.
And you're doing that. You're modernising.
We're about to produce a white paper. We're modernising already. The management of civil cases is greatly improving. But we have a long, long way to go. The court should be a public service to which the ordinary citizen of ordinary means can have access in those rare emergencies when he or she needs it.
But there's
one long way to go to get there.
Very brief,
and the legal profession,
Des,
with great respect, don't always help to make it less
There's one more thing the Lord
and quicker.
Chancellor could do today, and that's to commit to share the impact assessments he's done with the National Audit Office. There is enormous concern, a study, for example, by King's College London, which shows that this attempt to reduce costs won't work. Right. What we're going to do is move costs from the Ministry of Justice to other parts of the government.
Last point, then, Ken Clarke.
You have nothing to fear. The money will still flow to the legal profession as before. I can't understand
well, come on,
all these emails are bombarding the House of Lords saying that the end is nigh unless they pass some very expensive amendments.
That's always beneath you, Ken.
We're just getting back to common sense in the reforms we're making. I'd like to go further in the long run because I still don't know why we're spending so much, but I do agree with the point. Next thing to move to is the reform of the courts. A great deal has been done by the judges themselves.
What you're not going to do is reduce costs.
It's still not ready access for the ordinary member of the public in resolving disputes.